The city never sleeps, its neon arteries pulsing with hot nights that cling to my skin like a second shadow. I'm nobody, a drifter living by taking on odd jobs to survive in this city sprawl, where skyscrapers rise faster than dreams. My life was simple, until the day my birth chart marked me out for death. I'm sharing this because I got away, because I fought my way free from their grasp to alert the world. It started with a leaflet pushed under my door, offering regular work at a building company. The money was too attractive for a grunt like me, but when you're hungry, you become short-sighted. I rang the number, and a woman's voice, smooth and velvety, invited me for an interview. I ironed my single shirt, my hands trembling with expectation, and visited their office in a gleaming high-rise building. The lobby was glass and steel, chilling against my neck. I should have gone back then, but I had to have the job. The woman waited upstairs for me, a keen smile spreading across her face, her eyes scanning me as if I were cattle. She asked for my birth date, day, hour, minute, said it was for payroll records. I told her, feeling uneasy, as she took scribbled notes with her pen scratching like a warning.
Perfect match.
She breathed, hardly audible. I thought she was referring to the job, but her eyes stayed too long. The interview concluded abruptly. No inquiries about my qualifications, only the assurance of calling me shortly. Within a couple of days, a van pulled up outside my rented room, and two men wearing dark coats knocked on the door. I opened the door still half asleep, and then I felt a prick on my arm before all went black. I awoke in a damp basement, my wrists bound by coarse rope, and the air thick with mold and terror. My head pounded, my mouth dry, as I knew I was not alone. There were others, 5 or 6, huddled in corners, their faces gaunt and eyes vacant with terror. A young woman beside me whispered.
"They're going to bury us."
I didn't think she was right at first, but the reality slammed into me. The company wasn't recruiting workers, they were hunting for sacrifices. They believed our birth charts, our bodies, corresponded to some cosmic requirement, a means of placating spirits disturbed by their new skyscraper. I had heard stories about stuff like this, ancient stories about people sacrificing their lives for bridges or towers, but I did not believe they were practiced in modern times. Now, they wanted me instead, chosen because of the time I was born. I could hear footsteps upstairs, heavy and cautious, as voices filtered down through the ceiling.
"The site's unstable,"
a man said, his tone crisp.
"This is the last one we need."
I struggled against the ropes, my skin bruised, my heart pounding in my ears. The door to the basement creaked open, and a man in a suit descended, his face partially hidden in shadow. He carried a clipboard, checking off names like a butcher tallying cuts. His gaze landed on me, and he nodded as if I'd cleared some kind of hurdle. They dragged me to my feet, my legs shaking, and shoved me toward a stairwell. The others just stood there silent, their hope already crushed. I climbed up the stairs, the air colder, the smell of damp earth more pungent. They took me to a building site, a steel and concrete skeleton under floodlights. A hole opened in the ground, deep and black, its rim jagged like an open mouth. I saw equipment lying about, shovels, cement bags, ready to seal my doom. My stomach churned when I realized they'd bury me alive, my life a footnote to their profit. I tugged on the ropes, my wrists bleeding, and my fear heightened my senses. The suit-clad man yelled orders, his voice rapid and stern.
"Hurry, tonight is the ritual."
He barked. I scanned the perimeter of the room, my eyes finding a loose brick among some metal rods. If I could reach it, I might have a chance. They shoved me towards the pit, their hands coarse, but I spun, dropping to my knees beside the brick. My fingers brushed against it, icy and grainy, as I concealed it behind my back. One of the guards looked away, distracted by the static of a radio, and I seized my chance. I swung the brick into the other's head, a dull thud shattering the night. He fell, blood pouring from his head, and I fled, rope still bound to my wrists. The yard was a labyrinth of girders and shadows, my breath deafening in my ears. There were shouts behind me, boots clattering as they took up the chase. I dived behind a pile of pipes, my heart thumping against my ribs. The floodlights threw long, distorted shadows, making the cranes silent giants overseeing my escape. I untied the ropes, my fingernails breaking, and ran to a fence at the edge of the site. The barbed wire ripped my shirt as I climbed, my hands wet with sweat and blood. A guard's flashlight beam lit up beside me for a moment, but I dropped down to the other side and landed with a thud on the pavement. I ran into the city, its streets enveloping me, neon signs blurring by like ghosts. I hid inside a dumpster, the smell strangling me, until their voices disappeared into the dawn. When I came out, the city was waking up, not caring about my terror. I went to a cheap hostel, my clothes ripped, my body sore. I cleaned the blood from my hands, looking at my reflection in the mirror, thin, scared, alive. I wished to go to the police, but fear held me back. Who would trust a drifter against a big company? I put it up online instead, my fingers aching from typing, in an attempt to alert others to what they were doing. Some took notice, one saying, "I've heard this before. It is called planting live stakes. Not live stocks, but live stakes. Evil, but for a mega project, feng shui could be essential." But others did not, scrolling by my post. The skyscraper grew taller each day, its shining glass appearing a lie. I caught sight of it through bus windows, its shadow creeping over streets, and wondered who else they had lied to. Did they find another with my natal chart, another soul to feed their tower? I went back to my old room once, and it was empty, my things gone as if I never was. The company's name disappeared from the headlines, their efforts celebrated as a success. I moved to a different neighborhood, my sleep disturbed by dreams of that pit. I recognize the echo of the pit in each jackhammer and see their faces in each stranger's glance. My birthday torments me, a curse I cannot shake, a mark they might still chase. I live to tell you this, but living does not make me free. The city still grows, its skyscrapers towering over buried graves, and I am haunted by what I fled, and what I could not. I am a young worker, an insignificance in this metropolis. My palms harden from carrying steel for pennies that just allow me to live. I arrived here 12 months ago in pursuit of work, my ambition small, a bed, a meal, a chance to breathe. The building site where I ended up is a behemoth of iron and dust, its cranes grasping at the sky as if they were ripping open the heavens. I'm saying this because I lived, because I got out of their trap and lived to spit out the truth. It was late summer, the air thick with heat when I arrived on the crew. The site hummed, hammers clanging, welding torches flickering, a rhythm that stifled thought. I had an easy job, cart rebar, mix cement, roll on. The tower we built was to be a giant, a steel and glass idol looming above the city's chaos. I'd work till my back screamed, my shirt clamped on me, grateful for each day. The foreman saw me early, a thin man with a grin that never seemed to find his eyes. He'd give me extra time, say I was dependable, his voice friendly but cutting like a blade swathed in cloth. I trusted him because hope is all a broke boy has. The rest of the workers weren't the same, their eyes shifting away when he passed by, their words cut short. I saw it but ignored it. New guys don't stir trouble. We'd eat lunch in the shade of half-built walls, their faces lined with something heavier than fatigue. One night, as the sun sank red and raw, the foreman found me wiping sweat from my brow. His hand gripped my shoulder, too tight, and he offered a job off the books. "Good money," he said, his smile a hook. I hesitated, my stomach nodding, but I nodded. He led me across the site, past cranes frozen like sentinels, to a clearing lit by harsh floodlights. A steel case stood there, massive, cylindrical, its surface pitted with rust. It was part of a pillar's skeleton, one of dozens that hold the tower up. I'd seen them before, but this one isolated, almost revered. "Just look inside," he told me, his voice soft, as if I was in on some sort of secret with him. I peered into the case, a black cylinder barely bigger than my own body, the walls cold to my touch. My gut screamed at me to get out of there, but his eyes trapped me, waiting, unwinking. I climbed inside, the metal floor thudding against my boots, the noise swallowed up by the interior of the case. The air was still, heavy with rust and something bitter I couldn't place. I roared up that it was fine, my voice echoing back, looking forward to climbing out. Then the lid came crashing down over me, a loud boom that shook my core. Bolts scraped home, one by one a stake in my coffin, and darkness swallowed me up. My heart skipped, pounding so hard I thought it'd burst my ribs. I pounded on the walls, aching fists, screams stifled by metal. I heard his laughter, cold and sharp, cutting through my fear, through a thin crack. "The pillar needs a soul at the right location, right timing," he said, his voice a poison that cut to the bone. My mind reeled. They thought a life, entombed in concrete, would support the tower forever. I'd heard whispers of such things, ancient tales of workers buried to sanctify buildings, but I'd written them off as myth. And now, here I was there offering my life a toll for their legend. I ripped at the walls, my fingernails tearing, my lungs on fire and hoarse. The other workers, did they know? Their silence, their glances, it all seemed to make sense now. They'd make it happen, their palms dirty with complicity, possibly fear. I pictured the cement mixers out front, their engines growling, waiting to pour. If they sealed this case, I'd be smothered in it, my body buried, hidden in the tower's bones. My cries became raw and coarse, my throat ablaze, but I wouldn't perish like this. I stretched along the metal, my fingers hungry, until they closed on a seam, a weld, irregular and pitted. It was a flaw, a weakness in their jail, and hope started, feeble as it was fiery. I kicked at it, my boots on the metal scraping, my legs shaking with effort. The weld groaned, the voice of a savior's breath. I kicked harder again, my muscles burning, my perspiration running down onto the icy floor. Outside, restless voices were muttering. Someone protested, saying, "He's making noise." My pulse quickened. I didn't have time to waste. I punched my shoulder against the seam, stinging agony flying through me, but it gave way, a rush of light bursting into darkness. I kicked once more, grimmer creaks from the metal, and glimpsed it yielding. One push more, and the panel pulled free, scraping jagged metal across my arm as I staggered out. I hit the ground, gasping, the lamps blinded by a verdict. A laborer shouted, "He's out," his voice tense with guilt or fear. I struggled to my feet, my legs trembling, and I ran, weaving around stacks of rebar and concrete molds. The sight was a maze, its darkness jumping under the lights, cranes looming like titans ready to crush me. Shouts echoed behind, boots pounding, the foreman's shouting cutting through. "Find him now." I ducked behind a set of pipes, chest aflame, shaking hands as I wrung blood from my arm. Their flashlights flashed close, beams cutting through the dust, grazing my hiding spot. I flattened myself to the ground, grit in my mouth, willing my breathing to be quiet. The rumble of the truck stopped. They hadn't poured yet, but seconds had passed. I waited, my muscles tensing, my heart a drum in my head. The voices faded, their footsteps moving away, and I crawled out, my eyes on the fence at the edge of the site. The chain links flashed, sharp and cruel, but there was no other choice. I went up, my palms raw, the metal biting into my palms. A barb caught my leg, tearing flesh, but I pushed on, falling into a ditch on the other side. Pain erupted, but I hobbled standing, limping through the city streets. The neon signs swayed, their hues bleeding into night, taking me nowhere. I staggered past a shuttered store, owner gone, and slipped into a back room, the smell of oil and rot surrounding me. I fell to the ground, my body protesting, my mind echoing that clank. I washed my wounds in a drippy sink, the water stained pink with my blood, my face a ghost's, hollow, haunted, alive. I wanted to run to the police, to scream out what they'd done, but who would believe a laborer with no name? The foreman's crew could swear otherwise, call me a liar, a thief. I'd seen their eyes, they'd erased their own trails, maybe worse. I pulled out my phone, whose screen was cracked, and typed out my story, my hands trembling with fear. I put it up on the web, a raw plea for someone to care, to see what I saw. A reply flickered back. I believe you. Another said, get out of the city. But most just didn't listen, my words drowned out in the virtual night. I watched the news later on, shaking my hands, but the building of the tower was all they praised. No trace of me, no trace of their guilt. I left that area, my pack light, my feet heavy with fear. I found another job away from cranes, but sleep never comes easy. That clang resonates, ringing in every whine of engine, every bang of door. I capture his grin in crowds, sense their lips against my ears in the breeze. The other laborers, they're still there, pouring cement, their silence an unpaid bill. I pass the tower every so often in a bus window, its glass shell glinting like a lie. It towers, its pillars unyielding, and I wonder if they tried again. Did some other kid fit into a case, believing in the wrong guy? The city doesn't care, its skyscrapers built out of secrets, its soul forged out of steel. I lived to record this, but the weight is still there, knowing they'd trade my life for myth, believing my death would be reason enough for their greed. I am a mechanic, my palms slick, my days fixing trucks that deliver the city's endless needs. My twins 6, a boy and a girl, are my anchor, their laughter carried through our thin-walled flat, high in a tower block above the river. I share this because I survived, because I pulled them out of a darkness that still claws at my sleep. A new bridge was ascending, its steel frame glinting above the river, a monument to stitch the sprawl of the city together. I drive by every day, its piers punching out of the river like silent vows. Construction was cursed from the start. Scaffolding fell, workers died, rumors blamed the ghosts in the silt. I didn't give it a thought, my existence bound to my kids' photos, their crayon bridges glued on top of my workbench. My wife, who had once been full of life, sat quiet, her eyes darting to her phone, secrets that I couldn't unravel. I wrote it off as stress, until the night everything unraveled. I came home late, the apartment black, the air thick with a silence that slapped at my skin. My wife was sitting at the table, her hands together, a manila envelope on the table before her. She didn't look up, her voice a stranger's when she spoke.
They need the twins and babies, because they're pure and innocent.
She said flat as if she'd rehearsed it. I laughed, thinking a joke, but her face was stone. The envelope held pictures, my children at school, their faces circled in red ink. A note in the envelope listed their birth date to the hour, claiming it to fulfill some cosmic debt the bridge demanded. I ripped it up, my heart pounding, wondering who'd sent it. She shook her head, lips sealed, and I saw a fear in her eyes, not of us, but of something else. I glanced over at the twins, sleeping in their bunk, their breathing soft, unaware of the shadow that loomed. Yep. Sleep passed me by, my head repeating her phrases, the photos burned into my eyelids. I'd heard tales growing up, lives buried to consecrate buildings, old superstitions I'd ridiculed. They now sounded real, whirling in the darkness. The next day I removed the twins from school, their school too exposed, too monitored. I noticed cars lingering on our street, their windows tinted, engines idling too long. On the job, my gear was heavy, my hands shaking as I tightened bolts, my eyes meeting the stares of coworkers I did not trust. The bridge was bleeding money, delays, accidents, a crane collapse that killed 2 men. Rumors blamed the failures on cheap steel, but stories whispered of curses, of blood needed to appease the rage of the river. I told my wife we'd go, move to a new city, but she stared past me, her fingers drumming her phone. I didn't know she'd already decided. I caught her packing a bag one evening, not our bag, just hers and alone. She wouldn't look at me, muttering about bills we couldn't pay. I grabbed her arm, insisting on the truth, but she pushed me away, her voice breaking.
It's bigger than us.
She said to me and vanished, the door click a knife in my chest. I moved through the twins, their beds empty, their shoes gone. Panic seized me, my hands shaking as I searched the apartment, finding her phone, its screen lighting up with messages. Coordinates, the bridge, a time, midnight. She'd left them to him, traded their lives for promises I'd never hear. I ran all through the night, my boots pounding against asphalt, the city lights running together through my tears. The river lay before me, its surface black and still, holding secrets older than stone. I reached the bridge, its construction site a citadel of shadow, floodlights carving out jagged arcs. I crept past a guard station, my breathing rapid, the air thick with diesel and damp earth. The piers towered overhead, their pilings rooted deep in the river bed, mute witnesses to my terror. I heard voices, low and cadenced, along a half-built ramp, and I cowered behind a stack of rebar. My twins were with me, kneeling in the mud, wrists trussed, white faces under the glare. A suited man officiated the chant, his voice cutting, calling on the river to take its due. He wasn't the master, just a go-between, his suit too well pressed for this muck, his speech heavy with ritual. My wife stood next to him, her head down, her hands folded like a penitent. My boy cried, my girl quiet, their eyes roving the darkness for me. A pit lay close by, its rim raw, a grave for them. The horror hit close to home. They'd bury my kids alive, their lives a foul ransom for a bridge's wealth. I gripped a loose pipe, metal cold, knuckles whitened with rage. The brokers chant louder, laborers closing in, faces determined, tools glinting like sacrifice. I numbered them, 5, too many to fight, but there was no choice. A guard wandered close, his flashlight slow, and I swung, the pipe cracking his temple, his body falling into the mud. I advanced, my heart pounding, and cut their ropes with a piece of steel, its bite cutting my palm. "Don't make a sound," I whispered, embracing them tight, their little bodies trembling. We ran, my arms wrapped around them, dodging beams as screams erupted. A bullet set a girder ablaze, my girl gasping, but I shoved them into a drainage ditch, its slime covering us. The broker's voice boomed. "Stop them." His calm shattered, his ritual violated. We crawled through the ditch, thorns ripping our clothes, the river stench choking me. Searchlights swooped overhead, their beams inches from us, my twins' breaths rough but alive. I walked them when they fell, my legs burning, my blood mixed with dirt. We reached a rusty gate with its lock broken, and I kicked it open, the crash swallowed by night. An alleyway swept us in, walls closed together, the city's pulse far away but gathering. I flagged down a cab, its driver looking but silent, and we melted into streets that forgot our names. I took them to a friend's shop, out of the river's reach, its shutters hiding us until dawn. My wife never came back. Her body drifted up days later, the news stating it as suicide, but I saw wounds on her wrists, debts settled in silence. I moved the twins to a seaside town, their laughter stilled, their eyes too old for 6. Last month the bridge opened, cables humming, its piers oozing what had nearly been. I put our story online, my words raw, but answers mocked me, crazy, they wrote, a tale too fanciful. One response was other. They tried it first. I keep the twins close to me, their beds beside mine, their horrors disturbing both of us. The broker's face haunts me, his refrain in every whiff off the water. The city sits on, its rivers consuming truths, its bridges sitting on lies. I live to utter these words, but living is a wound. Knowing my wife sold them, believing their deaths could anchor a city's greed.